And welcome back into another episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, my name is Bruce Heller, and I'm normally joined by Brett Parnell, my co-host, but he was unable to watch last night's Survivor episode before we recorded because he's at a challenge premiere party last night. So we've got a guest this episode, and this is the first time we've had a guest on. It's someone I know in real life that's been a friend of mine for a few years. Kevin Oliver, welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to talk about Survivor.
So we've got episode 5 of Survivor 45. And before we get into the recap, who's your MVP or player of the week?
My player of the week is J. Maya.
Nice.
Yeah. Between devising the plan to take the blame for the Sifu vote, even though that could potentially get her kicked out, she kicked butt in the immunity challenge, and then wrapped it all up with having that amulet advantage. So I thought she had a great episode.
I like that pick. I thought she had a good episode. My one kind of cautionary thing with her is her taking the blame for that and B being like, oh, we can just vote her out.
Yep.
Won't be mad at me and Mama Julie, and we can all just go forward. Kind of makes me nervous for J. Maya, but
I completely agree.
But we'll see what happens. Mine is Austin because he had a really good episode. We see him go on the journey and be smart and not want to make waves, even though he wanted to pick sandwiches. He gets an advantage, which means at that point he's got like 4,000 of them. But yeah. And he's able to not play his idol, and which would have sacrificed his vote, but uses the goodwill advantage to counteract that, which is great. Keeps able to help sway Emily to keep his number one ally, Drew, in the game. Drew, for the most part, had a good episode, but he just made a couple really dumb mistakes here and there that made me not want to pick him. That we'll touch on in a second, but really great episode from Austin, in my opinion.
I think that's a great pick as well. He was on my short list as well.
Yeah. So diving into the recap, the first scene we see when new Reba is returning from tribal council, and what sticks out to you here?
Well, I have written down that, well, of course, Sifu kind of got denied by D. She was pretty
nice.
Yeah,
I saw that. The who voted for me, we're not ready to talk about it. Was a weird response, but I think the thing that sticks out to me there is we see the flashback of Sean being like, no, I didn't vote for you. What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like everyone has thoughts on it that I've seen online.
Sure. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of him kind of wrecking their game by doing that.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that they did a great job of playing into the hand they were dealt. They all kind of denied it, but I have written down, do they really think Sifu's that stupid? If Sean told him one thing, they couldn't all not vote for him.
Yeah. Well, and as far as Sean goes, I don't love him wrecking their game, but I'm not also convinced that that's what he was purposely trying to do. He was asked a question and he answered it. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of people criticizing him for that, and I think part of that is just people are angry with him because he quit, and rightfully so. I'm not sure what he's supposed to do there, honestly. I don't love it, but I don't know what he could have done that would have been better. He's not going to lie and say, no, I did. There's no reason to do that.
I mean, yeah, that's fair as well. I don't know. It's just a messy situation.
Them all saying no and saying Sean lied to you. Sifu clearly isn't buying that, and why would he? There's no reason for Sean to lie in that scenario. He's already gone.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what. And Sifu kind of pretends to believe it, and then the next confessional, he's back to hunting for truth. So, moving on from them, our next scene we have is at Belo camp, and we have a really what I have written down is funny scene, Kendra trying to eat a worm.
I also commented on that. I thought it was hilarious. And
Yeah.
I comment that Kendra is so fun. I love her. She's probably my favorite character so far in the season because she's just fun and
Yeah.
enjoyable.
She's been great. I feel like I don't know, they're editing her like her scenes and her confessionals to all they almost all have an astrology reference in them. I don't know how she actually was at camp, but it seems like she's very astrology obsessed, but
Absolutely.
that she seems super fun. And quick note, we have them talking about aliens and being the alien alliance. And here we see Emily laughing and playing along with that, which again, character growth from the first episode, where people are talking about aliens building the pyramids and she's just rolling her eyes and scoffing.
Yeah, I think there was even a confessional about it in that first episode where she commented on how stupid they were.
Yeah, it kind of that reminded me of Worlds Apart with Shireen just having a confessional on how stupid the Merge Tribe name was. So yeah, new Belo just seems to be living their best life up to this point. I'm loving that tribe.
Absolutely.
And
They're a lot.
it's two duos with Emily in the middle, so good for her. But and we'll get back to more Belo later.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
we move to Lulu camp in a really scary scene, kind of, with Jake just collapsing for what was apparently the second time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they showed us the first time or not live, or if
They
this
did.
flashback. Okay.
At Belo Camp, he was by the fire,
Yeah.
and like he almost
Well, I
fell in.
know they showed it in this episode. I just didn't remember if they had showed it before.
Yeah, I think it was last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes with the new era, they'll reference something that previously happened that we never saw. Then they'll go back and show the flashback of it.
Sure, yeah.
Kind of like with Nasir finding his idol, I believe, in 41.
Or like Matthew last season when he made his fake idol.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame he got hurt climbing that rock. He could have been fun.
He was a fun character while he was there.
And still with Lulu, we have now this is just a messy, chaotic scene. Katura getting caught looking for an idol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do not think that Katura was smart at all in the way that she handled that. I don't blame her for looking for an idol,
Yeah.
but I think that the way that all played out, if this new Lulu goes to a tribal, which I don't know that they will,
she's gone.
Before merge story, she's out first. I have that. That's my comment there.
When Caleb even tried to help her, he said her name before everyone else walked up.
Right.
She's still just really messy and sinks her own game. And not necessarily sunk her game completely, but didn't help herself any.
No, not at all.
People seem to like Bruce so far. No, we got a little bit of a different side of him, and maybe Caleb drifting away from that, but people seem to like Bruce, and we have this weird petty rivalry with Katura towards Bruce. So a little bit one-sided. Bruce is starting to feel the same way back, but not near as strong, I don't think.
And while we're still in Belo, I also made a comment here that Caleb was really showing us a kind of a master class in all of his connection building this episode as well.
I have that written down too, that Caleb has options. Katura and Kelly both want to work with him.
Sure, yeah.
And honestly, I didn't write it down, but I was thinking it while I was watching the episode this morning. If the way everyone is playing right now, Caleb, if he makes the end, I think he wins. He's just been excellent after excellent every episode.
He's incredible. Physically, socially, strategically, he's got it all.
He would be a really fun winner, and he follows our show's Instagram page. So
yeah, that's exciting.
But yeah, so and interesting quote from Caleb here, or speaking Caleb. He says that he thinks Kelly is the best player on this tribe.
I heard that, yeah.
That's interesting. I think Kelly's seems to be a really good player. She's
I like
able to kind of make connections and sit in the middle and not have to make decisions until this episode.
absolutely. I mean, tell you the truth, I runner up for player of the week if
Yeah, I thought about that. She was
mhm.
probably my second option behind Austin. But and it was almost her until Austin pulled the way he played his goodwill advantage at Tribal.
That impressed me. Yeah,
And I have a Twitter quote on that advantage. That's kind of interesting that we'll get to in a little bit. But
absolutely.
as much as I love Kelly, I feel like Caleb is probably the best player on this tribe. Looking at everyone, I think he's been the best player on all three tribes so far.
I would agree with that. I think he was probably just being a little humble, but yeah,
Other than almost getting blindsided, if I mean he ended up having great discernment and believing Emily, but he didn't believe her at first, and he almost got blindsided. But other than that, he's been incredible.
if he wasn't so good with connections, he wouldn't have had that
Yeah,
Emily to
yeah,
know. Side.
because he was the only one that did any reaching out to her early on, and it
Yeah,
paid dividends for him. And we get the great Emily quote of, "This isn't me trying to save my own ass. This is me trying to save your ass."
that was a good one. Yeah,
It's a great quote, and it's just so blunt. I love it. And I said this I think I texted this to you. I really did not like Emily after the premiere episode, and I've done a 180. I like her now. I'm rooting for her to stay around pretty deep.
I'll uh I'll comment on Emily a little bit later.
Okay. So, trying to find okay, so before we move on to the next Reba scene, did you have anything else from this first Lulu camp scene?
No, that was the rest of my stuff for that.
So we're back at Lulu, and we have this, and you've probably heard me say this. You listen to the episodes. Sifu gives me the same energy as the Game Changers version of Tony,
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
where he's just chaos everywhere, and it's greatly entertaining.
Hmm.
We
He's a
have
lot.
this weird scene of Sifu simultaneously trying to blend in and be cool, but still trying to get to the bottom of who voted for him. And like talking with Jay Maya, using this weird metaphor where he's basically trying to be peaceful, but also accuse her of voting for him, but not really. I don't really know what his goal was there, but it was great television.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know what his goal was. I didn't love what seemed like an intimidating tactic. If he's trying to, uh, I mean, he's got to move forward from somewhere, and
He's not intimidating. He's one of my favorites. So his smile is just kind of contagious. I see him, and he's from O'Fallon, Illinois, which is right outside of St. Louis. So it'd be cool to see him win. I mean,
yeah,
he's got to clean up the chaos and messiness if he's going to
he's
win, but
a lot
it's
of
really
work.
if he could.
He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to win this.
I mean,
But I think the
Tony won twice being chaotic and messy, so it's possible, but we've got a ways to go.
absolutely. But I think his fake idol. Um,
Oh, yeah.
it, I love it.
That is, yeah, and they totally believe it too. We see
Yeah,
Jay Maya say 2 or 3 times of her trying to plan around Sifu's idol, and what if he pulls that idol? I'm gone. They all think it's real. It's brilliant.
yeah, and that the success of that fake idol is what is potentially going to get J Maya out of this game from D and Julie too. So
Which is a great plan from their benefit. I mean, it's really sneaky and shady, but to get Sifu, if she goes to Sifu and says, "I voted for you," Dee and Julie are a pair. They can unite with Sifu, and any beef they had can be bridged under the water. They can all pretend to blame her and move forward. It's a
yeah,
good plan for Dee and Julie. It
yeah,
stinks if you're Jay Maya that you set yourself up, but great plan
or,
for them if they do it.
or even don't go with Sifu right away. Make it look like you're still going for Sifu, so that because they believe the idol to be real, so they could
Yeah.
potentially keep themselves safe by voting for J Maya and still flushing what they believe to be a real idol.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be smart. I didn't think about trying to flush the idol, but
Mm,
I doubt he would play it since it's fake, or at least try to. So,
he wouldn't. Oh, it wouldn't be smart for him to.
well, he's not Jason in Micronesia who had a stick that he thought was an idol and tried to play it. So,
Right.
what a great fake idol that was. Shout out to Ozzy for making that. I don't shout Ozzy out super often, but do you have any, before we move on, do you have anything else from this kind of short Reba scene we have here?
um, I just thought Dee's story was super cool. That was in this part
Oh,
of the thing,
yeah.
and getting to hear from her, and it was just good to kind of get some person like storyline to kind of explain why she is the way she is and where she came from. So
Yeah,
that was good.
I love D so far, and when we were doing cast assessments, I picked her out as one of my favorites just from the preseason stuff because she one of the players she wanted to play like or be like was Jesse,
Yeah,
and he was greatly entertaining on 43. So
absolutely. One of my favorite players of all time, probably.
uh, I mean, yeah, one of the most dominant players from the new era, especially if you consider that didn't players that didn't win.
Yeah,
Definitely, I mean, yeah, because if he gets to the end in 43, he steamrolls everyone. I don't care who
not,
he's up against.
not even close. Yeah, I agree.
That's just a weird season. I like it. Some people hate that season. I'm not one of those. I had no idea Gabler was going to win going into that finale. I
I
thought
remember.
zero chance of winning going into that finale.
I
But
remember your story after that. You were like, "What did I just watch?" Which is
yeah,
exactly what I said as I watched it.
nobody saw that coming. But shout out to Gabler. He
Really,
played a good game somehow with none of us knowing he was doing it.
if you win, you win.
Yeah, Rob said that on Winners at War.
Or, yep.
So moving on, we have a quick Belo scene,
Mhm.
and because everyone's been making it look like, oh, New Bello is two strong duos with Emily in the middle. Well, here we see Brando say that of everyone on Old Bello, he and Kendra probably had the smallest connection, which is interesting to me because we've been everyone in the edit and like fans have been making this out like Emily's the middleman between two duos, but maybe this isn't as strong of a pair as we thought.
Right. And I completely agree that, and really, that's one of the things I wrote down was that Brando doesn't trust Kendra, but I think that a line in the sand is definitely drawn here in this scene from Drew that kind of balances that back out.
Yeah, and here in a second, we're going to get to the main reason why I refuse to pick Drew for my player of the week. But before we get to that, I love the scene of Brandon just nerding out for a while. Like, I'm not even a Pokemon guy, but watching him just nerd out with his Pokemon expertise was great.
That's how I described this scene. I just wrote Pokemon. I mean, there was I never thought that I'd be watching Survivor and Pokemon would be the focal point of any scene, but
That's me
we,
with Survivor and with Star Wars and with Marvel and sports too, but like of nonfiction franchises. That'd be me out there on the beach talking Star Wars or talking Marvel.
I could see that.
And then, so, and that scene leads into what I was talking about, and I've referenced a couple times of I refuse to pick Drew for my player of the week because we see Brandon say, like, hey, let's work together. I feel a vibe here. Maybe like a nerd alliance, sort of. And Drew just immediately shuts it down. Like,
Didn't even take a second thought. Yeah.
even if you don't mean it, why wouldn't you just go along with it? By shutting it down, it immediately put a target on Drew's back. And
Mm-hmm.
by contrast, look at Austin on the journey. He he says, "Oh, yeah, we can use these amulets as a pact and work together," and just goes along with what they're saying. while in a confessional saying, it's absolutely my goal to take these people out.
Right. Absolutely.
Such a really weird, in my opinion, really bad move by Drew, and it wound up being fine in the end, but really bad move from Drew there to just immediately shut that down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's where that line was drawn in the sand there, that now we're back to this Reba versus Belo thing that,
Yeah.
and I think that, and that's something else about Emily is in the best spot here because
Yeah.
of that.
That's crazy. She was this close to being the first boot of the season, and now she's in the best spot of almost anyone in the game.
Yeah.
I love the way this game can just turn on its head at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, moving back to Lulu camp, the note I have here just says Bruce, and I'm trying to. Oh, I know what that was.
Dumbest thing ever.
It's him like being all grumpy and bossy after getting the Funkle edit the whole season, and like Caleb starting to realize, hey, maybe this guy is a little bit annoying.
Yeah, my note here is that he better watch it. He literally said that, I don't even remember who was talking, but somebody said something, and his comment was, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard."
Oh, because they were talking about not wanting to skip eating at that moment so they can eat before the challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, now that you say that, that's what it was, and that's why Bruce better watch out, because he's starting to turn heads when he says stuff like that.
And to be fair, he caught himself as soon as he said it, but at that point, you've already said it.
What's done?
He's getting such a weird edit this season, though, dude. Because like he's getting the Funkle edit of like I'm the fun uncle. Everyone seems to like him, and
Yeah.
then we'll get a scene in the premiere of him saying he doesn't want to be dad, and then telling people how to build camp. And then we get more of everyone loving him, and then we get this scene where like Caleb saying, "Hey, this guy's kind of annoying."
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they brought him back after 44 because he's been one of the more memorable characters of this. Like he'll always be remembered partially for what happened in 44, but he's gotten such a weird fun edit this season. I have no idea how far he's gonna go. Usually you can kind of tell by the edit people get, but
I agree. He could be next, or he could be in the final three.
it's great. And so that's Bruce is pretty much what we get from that Lulu scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so going back to Reba, and we've touched on this a little bit. This is the scene where Jay says she's willing to sacrifice herself and move for the sake of her and Dee and Julie,
Mm-hmm.
and throw herself under the bus and claim the Sifu vote that she didn't commit. And this is where Dee immediately goes to Julie and says, we can capitalize on this. We can just vote her out and keep ourselves safe if we want to.
No, I thought it was really funny because as I'm hearing Dee give a confessional before she actually comes out and says it, I wrote down Dee might vote out Jay with a question mark, and then directly after I wrote that down, she literally threw that idea out.
Nice, you predicted it. It happened because you wrote that down.
I must have.
Just like how I invented Oreo ice cream cones. But that's a story for another day that the people listening to this don't get.
Yeah, no, they do not at all. And no, he did not invent Oreo ice cream cones.
I might have. And so, but no, Dee's been awesome this season.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen a ton of her because early on, Lulu was Mat Singh and Luzon and Oolong and all the great disaster tribes of Survivor history. And so Lulu was getting all the airtime.
Thank God for a tribe swap. I know, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
I know you guys are past that. I wasn't here. Thank God for a tribe swap. It's back.
I know. I was so happy to have that back. And
yeah.
The Mat Singh comparison continues because you look at Mat Singh, Malcolm and Denise, the only people left, got split onto different tribes. here we have 3 people left at the swap, and they all got split into different tribes. So
we can kind of forget about Sean, and the other two look as good as Malcolm and Denise did on their split tribes.
I really hope those two make the merge, like both of them, and we can get them back together. I loved that duo.
I don't think there's a way they don't at this point.
Yeah. This has been such a good season for just duos. Because we've had, I mean,
Awesome.
Caleb and Emily got really close. Austin and Drew, one of them compared their alliance to Steven and JT. I don't think they're on that level quite yet, but and
they could on how the season.
They could be by the end, but and then we had Kelly and Brando were a really fun duo.
Yeah.
And so until the swap where they got split up. Do what?
Sabaya and Sean were a thing.
Yeah. Well, her and Sean, Sabaya and Sean and Caleb were all close that first episode.
Right. Yeah, but it turns out that after all this post game coverage, we find out that Sabaya and Sean were closer than Sabaya and Caleb ever were, even though it made it look the opposite.
Did you see the thing that I saw a headline online somewhere on Facebook that Sean has since said he has an intense feeling of regret? I think how he phrased it about quitting.
Yes.
And then it was just kind of word vomit, and by the time he said it, he didn't know what had happened. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know because I don't know how you can just word vomit that you quit. I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't know. I've never had to go that many days at a time without eating. I assume it wears on your mind. I believe him. I'm just like, it's like Prope said on Fire. Like, he's romanticizing and trying to make excuses for the quit.
Mm-hmm.
Just own it.
Amen.
But, and it stinks that happened because he was a great, like, he was a really cool character up until he quit.
Yeah, he was never one of my, but I didn't have against him, and I really liked what he was doing when he was working with Caleb and Sabaya. But
the second Sabaya went home, he just started spiraling.
Done. Yeah.
I saw someone make a comparison to Kagion, where when Cliff goes home, Lindsay just kind of starts spiraling, and then Trish is awful to her.
Yeah, Trish.
Quitting. I'm not a huge fan of Trish. I know some people are. I don't like her on Trish on Kagion.
Yeah.
And Lindsay ends up spiraling because she got blindsided and lost her ally and quitting. That's what happened with Sean last episode.
Right.
Without the Trish aspect of it, he spiraled on his own without someone picking at him.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to the immunity challenge. Surprise, Reba finishes first in an immunity challenge once again.
I was happy.
Other than last week, seems to be what happens every time.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the way Brett phrased it was, the immunity challenge can start, you can get up and go get popcorn or go grab a snack and come back, and Reba's already won.
Yeah, I heard him say that last week.
And that makes me laugh because honestly, it's true. Reba's been dominant in challenges, both original Reba and this version of it.
Yeah. I noticed here at the beginning of the challenge that Kelly was not very happy to sit out, though.
I thought Emily sat out.
Kelly's in a different tribe. Kelly's in Lulu.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, Kelly and Emily both sat out. But Kelly didn't sit out.
Yeah, Kelly's been really good so far. She's up there with Caleb to me as like some of the best gameplay we've seen this season.
Those two are killing it.
I love that they're on the same tribe. I'd like to see those two get something going.
Mm-hmm.
But Reba wins, Belo loses. So poor Emily is having to go to every tribal council except one so far. Which, again, just like Survivor Philippines, Denise went to every tribal council that season. Emily's just going to do the same thing, -1 apparently. And so, moving on, because we've got 10 minutes left, we have a journey, and instead of each tribe picking their own, we kind of have a little bit of a Micronesia throwback, is how I phrased it. Because each, like Reba winning the challenge, gets to pick who goes from each tribe, which was really fun. I like that.
Yeah, I also enjoyed that.
Which the reason it made me think of Micronesia is because the winning tribe would get to pick who goes to Exile Island from theirs and the losing tribe, which was really fun. I
Sure.
think Cook Islands might have done that too. No, Cook Islands only sent one person to exile at a time, I think. Don't quote me on that if you're listening to this. But Jay, Austin, and Kelly end up going into the journey. And we've talked about the journey a little bit, but this one's different. Normally it's each person individually has a choice to make, but we have a group choice to make this time.
Mm-hmm.
You either can eat sandwiches and have this food and sustenance and fuel your body, or you can all take this strategic advantage. And so, like, when you saw this, where's your mind going? Like, what would you choose in the moment? Like, what would be your first reaction to that?
My first reaction always goes to advantage every time.
See, my mind went food partially just because it's not like the older seasons. We don't have rice at camp. I'll take food and fuel how I can get it. But also, people knowing you have an advantage kind of makes you a target, and I'd be trying to fly a little more low key than people knowing I have an advantage. But I think Austin was smart with how he handled it.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I think that Austin's story really made sense. And also, I think that the fact that Austin was not going back to camp to fish also could have played a role into why he chose sustenance, why he wanted to choose sustenance.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I'm Reba or Lulu, I could eat now, sure, but I'm going to go back and eat when I get back to camp too.
Yeah. And so they end up, as we mentioned, they choose the idols, and it's not idols, amulets, the way it was in 42, where they all three have to be played together, or if only one is left in the game, it becomes an idol. So they all
Yeah,
agree to work together while we get a confessional of Austin saying, yeah, no, I'm absolutely going to try to turn this into an idol, which is what Drew should have done when Brando approached him about the Nerds Alliance. But
completely agree. And
real
that's
quick,
I actually found that the amulet advantage reminded me of Survivor 42 with high and
yeah,
whatever two. Yeah.
real quick before we get into tribal, because I know you wanted to touch on this, we have a mess at Belo before tribal of Brando offers to give Drew his shot in the dark, to not vote his name out.
Which is becoming currency now, and I love that.
I have such a question about that, and I emailed the question line for On Fire, and I hope they answer it.
Yeah, I
Because
hope.
I just want to know, can they sacrifice their own vote a second time to use someone else's shot in the dark? Or is it like the legacy advantage where in Game Changers, where Suri tries to play it and we realize that's non-transferable? So
Right.
anyway, we see Drew immediately go and tell Emily Brandon threw Kendra under the bus. Emily confronts Brando, who then says that was Drew's idea to go after Kendra. And we just have this whole mess here. So I know you said you had thoughts on this and you had thoughts on Emily in this scene. So go ahead.
Well, for one, um, I I still don't like Emily. It's actually because of what she chooses to do at tribal is
Yeah.
why I don't like. But my thought is that Brando should not have lied to Emily here.
Yeah.
I think that he could have just as easily said, "Yeah, I did say that" to Drew to get him to believe me, and I think it would have done just the same thing without making Emily question which of the two she could believe.
Yeah.
If them,
Because she ends up realizing the truth in the end. And
yeah.
so
But if you heard, she also kept calling him Brendo instead of Brando, and I just thought it was hilarious.
yeah, I get why people aren't sold on her yet, but she's definitely like growing in her like personality and game. She's getting better each episode, I think.
I think that her gameplay is getting better. I'm just not a fan of the decision she made.
Yeah. So let's get into tribal real quick before a line blindside first boot because we've got 4.5 minutes. So any thoughts on tribal?
Yeah. I for one, I forgot about the goodwill advantage. I loved that played a part here, and that made it really fun for me. And that's why I like your pick for Austin back at the beginning for
Yeah.
Player of the Week. But also, I'm just really sad because at the beginning I picked 3 players that I really liked. 2 of them are now out, Sabaya and Brando. I got
Yeah.
Seafood. So I really hated to see Brando go.
I hated to see him go too. Real quick before a line blindside first boot, because I teased that I had a quote I wanted to share on the goodwill advantage.
Yeah.
Mike Bloom of RHAP, I saw this on Twitter. Maybe a hot take. There shouldn't be advantages that cancel out other advantages. Agree or disagree? I see his point. I don't know if I agree or not, but I see his point.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think I do. I mean, why
Okay.
have an if another advantage can make that advantage not matter anymore?
I've kind of been thinking this since they introduced the idol nullifier in David versus Goliath. But look
Yeah,
at how great of a tribal that nullifier caused. That
it
was
did.
television.
Great TV.
A minority split vote may never be seen again. So who are your 3 names for a line blindside first boot?
Yeah, I wanted to go with I wanted to do a theme, so I based it off of people who kind of like to flip flop, split vote kind of thing with how Emily did her split vote. I have Rob Sesternino, Jacqueline Schultz, and Sarah Lucina.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Sarah a lot. I'm gonna first boot her by rule because she's the only winner here.
I expected that.
Sesternino, I feel like, is a better player, so I have a stronger chance of getting to the end with him rather than Jacqueline. And I love Jacqueline too. San Juan del Sur has such an underrated cast. But with if I go to the end with Sesternino, he's harder to beat than Jacqueline is. So I think I'll align with her and blindside him. And also, I feel like blindsiding him, he'd respect that a lot sitting on the jury.
That's fair.
So yours, because I know you're a fan of heroes, healers, and hustlers.
I am.
I've got Desi Williams. I've got Dr. Mike, just because I love Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
And Chrissy Hoffbeck.
Well, for one, I'm first booting Chrissy.
Thank you.
There.
I know a lot of people are such big fans of her. I don't get it.
I'm not a Chrissy fan, and I also think that it would be really dangerous for me to go to the end with her out of these 3. I think I'm going to the end with Dr. Mike because he's hilarious.
I love Dr. Mike,
but I don't think that he's really that dangerous at the same time.
He's not.
And I think Desi's a way better player than she got.
Yeah.
That be in season 35. I loved her on the Challenge USA both seasons.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm gonna have to blindside her though.
She showed a lot of potential in Survivor. She's probably even better at the challenge than she was at Survivor. Shout out to Desi. She killed it.
I loved it.
Challenge.
Congratulations, Desi.
I kind of agree with your picks. I'm glad you first booted Chrissy just because I see so much love for her online and I just don't get it. I'm not a fan for whatever. I don't dislike her. I don't get all the hype.
You know, I'm a Ben fan, so
yeah,
that kind of cancels out any kind of love I could have for Chrissy.
And credit to Ben for finding idols the way he did. Like he played the hand he was dealt really well.
Yeah, everybody was.
Why winners that play idols get discredited so much because of their idol finds, but
they don't discredit all the people that let them find the idols.